that we have to differentiate between the terrorists and the people of Kashmir. The people of Kashmir are part of India. The terrorists come from Pakistan. There were mortar shells and RT shells landing on their head if they attempted infiltration from any area. You have to tell me that, okay, they have tried to do something. They have raided our post, but we have gone across and already raided a post or did something. When they come to meet you on the LC, a small flag meeting, you are the ones putting on helmets in BPJ while they are in normal caps. It should be the other way around. After 8 months, he sent me a photograph where the Pakis were with BPJ and helmets and our people were in hat. One fine day after the parliament was attacked, we were mobilized and here was my whole battalion. We were already geared up, ready to go. I got into a bonnet of a jeep and spoke to all my men. I said, the nation needs us. The morale of the whole battalion was much higher, much different. I was feeling better. Since 62 on the line of actual control, and except one or two odd incidents in 67 or very recently in Galwan, we have not allowed violence to go beyond a point. In America, the open sky policy came around in late 90s. People like Elon Musk, where private players started getting into the space domain. In India also the government realized that we also should have an opportunity for our private play. Thanks to the army, it has been a dream run. I could do everything possible which any soldier would aspire to.
Namaste, Jai Hind. Welcome to another edition of ANI Podcast with Smita Prakash. Today my guest is Lt Gen Anil Kumar Bhatt, who retired as Military Secretary of the Indian Army in 2020. He has had a 40-year career in the forces, where he held major appointments including that of the DGMO during the Doklam Crisis against China, with General Bipin Rawat as his chief. He also served as the Chinar Corps Commander from 2018, when the Indian Army carried out extensive major operations against terrorist leadership in Kashmir Valley and eliminated major groups there. He served 3 times in Jammu and Kashmir and has held several important posts, including that of Commander of the 21st Mountain Division. He's also the first Director General of the Indian Space Association. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast, General Bhatt. We are very honored that you've come here. My colleague Ajit Dubey is here. He handles defense, as you would know. Ajit has got a very bad throat, which is a Delhi phenomenon, I think. But in spite of that, he's going to join me.
Ma'am, I got it on an Air Force tarmac in Jodhpur. So
okay, so not eating golgappas is what he's trying to say. But he'll join me because he has more domain experience and things, and we will ask you about the current hat that you wear, which is the space program. But before that, we want to talk about your years in the army, and because the curiosity is, of course, about that. You were the Chinar Corps Commander in 2018, sir, when a large number of terrorists were neutralized in the valley. Could you tell us a little bit about those years?
Well, amongst my entire career, if I look back and look at something which was like a dream, that was my tenure as a Chinar Corps Commander. Mm-hmm. And I would like to share with you that every morning, when I would get up, get dressed up, and just before I left to meet the forward troops, I would close my eyes and thank God. And you know what I would say? That this life should continue forever. That you are there where the whole nation is looking up to you to perform. You lead the best men of the Indian Army, and whatever you do will help this nation to become stronger. And it was always, every day it would make me feel that I'm in the ultimate job. And I wish that I would have continued like that forever.
Right. So what happened in 2018, sir? Well, how was it different from earlier years because of these operations that you undertook?
Now I'll start with the background. Mm-hmm. Militancy, or what we call CI operations in Kashmir, have been waxing and waning. And by 2008, we had got a grasp of it. Then started the new movement where people were getting involved. More civilians were being killed. And it was something like an intifada they were creating. And that peaked in 216 when a young boy called Burhan Wani was killed. There was the first social media terrorist. The kind of anger he could create amongst the normal public, amongst the youth, they brought Kashmir to a standstill. It was a new kind of movement where it was people coming out. There was stone pelting. There were large crowds when a civilian or a terrorist was killed. And this was all being organized. It was more to attract the world opinion, the world media, and get a feeling that everyone in Kashmir does not want to be part of India. And added to that in the same year, if you know, was when the incident happened in Uri, where there was an attack on a new battalion which was coming in, and we lost a large number of troops. Of course, we reacted to it, and that was the first time the Indian army went across the line of control, and we sent a message to Pakistan. But from then on, when I went and took over, to me was to now take back that. Take back the narrative from the terrorists, from the separatists. And for that, what I identified what all I have to do. Firstly is convince my own men that they are doing the best job and they are broad shoulders to hold their hand. And for that, every day I was out communicating with my men, with my young officers, assuring them and also telling them what was more important, that we have to differentiate between the terrorist and the people of Kashmir. The people of Kashmir are part of India. The terrorists come from Pakistan or are elements who do not believe in what is India. And the only thing for them is the gun. They have to be eliminated. And one thing more. To me, it was killing of terrorists was not a parameter that brought success. It's something else that because I did not put that pressure on my command, a largest number of terrorists were killed in that decade. From 2008 till today, that year has been the largest number of neutralizations. Now, one was this thing. The other was...
What was the number, sir?
It was around 274. And the other thing which happened along with that was, I was able to get all the security forces together. And that is an experience, or that is what I had learned when, with my previous experiences in the valley, where differences between police, CRPF, intelligence agencies, we would lose out. And here, my tenure, even in the northeast as a corps commander, and now in the valley, and one of the persons I learned all this was from General V.K. Singh. He was my GOC when I was in the valley, and he really laid down a lot of importance to inter-services cooperation. So this is what I ensured, and by 2 months of my tenure, we were all like a band of brothers. The IB chief there, the RAW chief there, the DGP of police, we were all working together. And that synergy produced strength, produced effectiveness in all domains.
I'm going to come to social media and taking back the narrative later. But, you said that you didn't put forward this goal to your men that itne number chahiye. So many I want killed. But it just happened because of various reasons that you say. But what was the brief given to you when you started there?
The brief to me, of course, there was no written brief, but what I understood it, and I had an advantage. I was going there after being the Director General of Military Operations. I knew the chief's mind clearly. And what was most important is to bring the level of violence, control it.
And your chief was, sir?
General Rawat.
General Bipin Rawat, yes. Okay.
And there was a clarity that we have to use the gun, violence only against terrorists. And we have to differentiate. We have to win over the narrative of Kashmir, win over the people of Kashmir. And that has been an ongoing effort. And I'm so happy that we could achieve and create conditions that in the next year after I left, the government was confident enough to remove 370, Article 370, which has changed the narrative in Kashmir.
Right. But before that happened, it said that just because of this very strong army action against terrorists, Pakistan, probably decided that some big incident has to be done, because otherwise the army will continue. And it said that the Pulwama attack was a result of the successes that the Indian army got in 2018. So just before I hand over to you, for our viewers, listeners who don't know about the details of this, the foreign audience or Indians living abroad, just a brief explainer that the Pulwama attack was on February 14th, 2019, where a vehicle-borne suicide bomber attacked a convoy of vehicles on the Jammu-Srinagar National Highway in Pulwama. 40 CRPF soldiers died in that attack and one Kashmiri who was the perpetrator. Right, sir. So can you tell us about that Pulwama attack?
Firstly, your assessment, and I agree with you, that because we were, the violence levels were under control, we had put all terrorist organizations on the back foot, the separatists on the back foot. I as a Corps Commander, anticipated there would be some reaction. And the two vulnerabilities which the military forces have in a place like Kashmir, one is the IDs, that is explosive devices which can be used on highways. And here also I'll tell you the challenge there was to bring back normalcy, let people move freely. And I'll give you an example. Say 10 years back, a convoy moving on the highway from Banihal to Srinagar.
Everything was blocked.
Everything was stopped. Standstill for those 2-3 hours when the convoy. We slowly allowed people to move along with us. And this cost of normalcy, this cost of peace was that this suicide attack took place. It was because we were allowing the people of Kashmir to have a more peaceful life. But yes, that is the cost one has to have. And my fears were two. One was ID or other was an attack on some headquarters. And here I would tell you about, there was a Jaish-e-Mohammed terrorist sent a few months earlier to attack the Srinagar base, my headquarters.
Badami Bagh
Ghatak
Platoon.
Platoon. And there was an announcement that this is going to happen. We traced who that person was. He was in the Tral Valley. And he had told, he had a team with him whom he had instructed that they have to attack Srinagar. And if they don't do it, he himself will come. He was a senior commander. We found him and eliminated him like a rat. We were doing it all over. For IDs also it was there, but yes, one odd societal, we have to succeed 40 times. It is one failure which makes a difference, where we lost so many people.
Yeah. Was there any failure in SOPs in that? I mean, there will be inquiries, there'll be new SOPs which were probably been laid after that. But what went wrong, sir? 40 lives was a very high price to pay.
Maybe at that time, and I had of course left, so I would leave
You had
it to
left
the-
only 5-6 days back.
about 3 weeks back.
3 weeks back. Yeah.
What was the thing is, maybe what I felt was, maybe too many of a very large number of troops were moved together. There was snow. The Banihal had been closed for some time. There was pressure in Jammu that troops have to move in. And that could have been maybe planned in a more logical manner, that such a large vulnerability would have not been there.
And do you think that it's also intel information which the other side, which the Pakistanis had, that there is a change of guard, that a new Corps Commander is coming in?
That would have not made the difference, because the person who replaced me was maybe better.
General
that is-
Dillon, who we had here.
So there's
that
a
is not continuity which happens.
There was total continuity between him and me in what we thought of how operations had to be done, how the whole story had to be carried forward. And that would not have been the reason. It was, they found that vulnerability that day. They must have been carrying out the recce for some time. And that was the day they found that there was a very large number moving. And because there was snow, because all around, and this large number they would have come to know maybe from Jammu itself when they would have moved. A little guard was down maybe. Yes, every day when the convoys moved, and that is my memory goes back to when I was even a Colonel GS. That was something like a bride coming in. We were very cautious. We used to have our guards on all along. But like I said, free movement, allowing the Kashmiri people also to move along when the convoy is moving, that was the cost of that.
As you said, prior to moving into the valley as the Chinar Corps Commander, you served as the Director General Military Operations. Now it was during that tenure, General Rawat had taken over as the Chief of Army Staff. He was very aggressive on this front, and recently the CDS also said that you people took the war to the enemy.
Yeah.
How was it? What was the thinking at that time, sir? And how did you achieve it?
Now, I would give you an example. Previously, if there were infiltrations which took place into Kashmir Valley, the troops on the LC used to respond. We used to take countermeasures, do anti-infiltration acts. If they came inside, we got after them. The IDs were put on our side. Now we decided there is across the line of control is sitting Pakistan, which is troubling us, but their troops are not paying for it. So the aim was to put a cost into the actions. And the cost was, if they helped for infiltration, we did actions. We used artillery, we used direct weapons. So all along the LC was activated. The outcome of that was that the Pakistani troops who were just bystanders now were paying for the actions. And this resolute action for a long time has had its results. The support for infiltration and all by local commanders definitely reduced.
And sir, was this your personal observation that they are having a good time, or was it feedback from the ground troops, or whose idea was it?
That Pakistanis were having
We knew that in the whole CI operations which were happening in the valley or even in the area of Rajouri, the Pakistani troops would not get affected by it. They would assist these infiltrators to get through.
And how would they assist, sir? Because we know how they assist, but for our listeners, how would they assist? If you could explain what actually you did, sir.
Firstly, they would provide a base from where they could take off and infiltrate. Give them information, where are the gaps across, where are ambushes and other things have been put. And thirdly, at times, carry out an exchange of fire to distract our troops so that these people could infiltrate through. This was a modus operandi which has been there for a large number of years. But now here there was a cost. There were mortar shells and RT shells landing on their head if they attempted infiltration from any area.
So did you, once you took over, General Rawat came in, the team, now you decided that if you fire a bullet at us to support a terrorist, we will pay it back in RT shells and heavy fire. Because I remember, sir, you people who had put the turrets of the old Vision tanks.
Yeah.
If you could tell us about that, sir.
This was basically to increase the potency of the direct fire. So the caliber is slightly higher of these turrets, the weapons in which are there. It provides a protection.
Which weapon was it, sir?
Basically, we went into the caliber which was slightly higher, 2.50 at times, and used some of the anti-aircraft guns which are there on the tank and all, which we used for direct firing. Because it gave us better range and it gave us better effectiveness.
Also the psychological
not that
pressure?
this has not happened before.
That's what I wanted to know. Is it a psychological pressure also, sir,
Yes.
by doing that? Yeah.
Not that it had not happened before or military commanders had not done it before. But now there was a direction from the highest authority that we have to be more punitive in our actions against Pakistan.
Inflict cost.
More. Inflict a total cost on the Pakistan army.
Does that
And-
help in the morale, do you think, of the forces?
Firstly, it helps the morale of our troops definitely, but more importantly,
On them.
the other side, the enemy now is more cautious to carry out any activities which are inimical to us.
And sir,
He has to pay a cost for it.
I've been visiting the LC for a long time, sir, like 20 years, and even before that, TV we used to see our troops wearing BP jackets and all. Did this punitive action change the behavior of the Pakistanis?
Now, I'll tell you further how it happened, and of course, I am not the only one who did it. When I went to Srinagar and I would go to my troops on the forward area on the line of control, and OD had happened a few years back, my directions to my commanding officers, to my brigade commanders was that any such action would not be acceptable to me. And if it happens, your reaction should happen before you report to me. You have to tell me that, okay, they have tried to do something, they have raided our post, but we have gone across and already raided a post or did something.
This is your these were your orders to troops to this is
Proactive.
post Uri.
Yes.
Post Uri,
Yes.
when they came in, sent terrorists and killed our
Yeah,
people on
yeah.
the LOC, your orders were that if they try it again, you will carry out an action against them and then report to me.
Yes. This was my direction was you will not look back for orders. Your reaction at the local level will take place and you will inform me after that. Now what happened because of that? Because my Ghatak platoons, my special forces were carrying out recce all along the LC. It created an automatic caution across. Combined with us carrying out RT fire, direct fire, what happened was, and this is, one of the COs on the LC, I told him, well, when they come to meet you on the LC, a small flag meeting, you are the ones putting on helmets in BPJ while they are in normal caps. It should be the other way around. And sure enough, after 8 months, he sent me
Dar ka mahal.
After 8 months, he sent me a photograph where the Pakis were with BPJ and helmets and our people were in hats. It's a psychological game.
It's a game. That's right. So, a couple of questions before that. You mentioned Ghatak Platoon. Some of us know it, who've covered. Ab ye bataiye, sir, what is a Ghatak Platoon?
Yeah.
It sounds very sexy term, I must
And
say.
Ghatak and SF, sir, how do they operate?
Yes.
What were they wrecking for? What were they looking for, which you talked about?
Now, the difference, the security, special forces which are there, they quite a bit previously we would use them inside the valley to carry out surgical operations. They are troops who are better trained, they are better armed, and they, as a team, they carry out very good operations. And for many years, they were carrying out operations inside, anti-terrorist operations. But some time back, and it was much before my tenure, during General Hudda's time, that the recce's for strategic targets across started taking place. So the SF today was now focusing on targets across the line of control, if and when required. Now that is at the level of corps and command. But at the level of the battalion commander, his special forces are the Ghatak Platoon. It is the best 20 to 30 men, well trained, highly motivated, who are able to carry out operations of equal grade like the security forces.
Special
In fact,
forces.
Special forces. Huh.
This is special forces. Their caliber, their motivation, and even today their weapons are of a category that they can carry out small, surgical, and effective operations. And this is, each battalion has it. Even on the LC, at sometimes battalions create 2 of these units. Now, way back, they were called commandos. It was called a commando platoon of infantry battalion. This name Ghatak was given by late General Joshi. And he said they should be called differently and they should be called Ghataks, and that is how this. And Ghatak is one who
Inflicts casualty. Yeah. So, what is the mental makeup of somebody who works in a Ghatak platoon? Like when you meet a person who's from that group, what is the mental makeup of that person? He knows that he may not come back from an operation, from a task given to him. He may not come back alive, right? What is the mental makeup?
They are the gladiators of a CO. They are pampered. They are even allowed to put in a special dress. They are only focusing. They are the lead boys. At many times people say no, it's only creating a few experts and the whole battalion or the whole regiment should be equally good. But to have such a team motivates many others to reach that level of caliber, military capability, and all that. And of course, the cost is that if required, they are the first ones who will give their life. But that apart, it is not in an infantry battalion, I would expect everyone to be a Ghatak.
Right. So, did you at any point of time send men across, which if you can't say, I well understand. But when you send men on these tasks and you know that they may not come back, what does it feel?
Oh, this is one of the most, for a senior commander, and especially when you're a CO, you are much closer, but when you're a corps commander, maybe you are at a distance. But every man, and if at all he goes the harm way, if he goes for a risk, you have sleepless nights. It is like your own son, your own child going across. So this is one of the most difficult thing for any commander. I would not specify that did I send troops across or not and all. But I would only give you an example that there was a Gurkha battalion in my AOR. And one day while patrolling was being carried out, one of our JCOs was hit by a sniper, by a team which had come very close to the line of control. He got a bullet and later he succumbed to his injuries. In the next 5 hours, there was a blast in a post in Pakistan where 6 people died. I won't get into the details how it happened. And of course, I did not send any troops across. But we did it. So it is not only doing it physically with your troops. There are proxies, there are many other methods to handle the enemy on the line of control.
That taking of badla for a loss of life of your man, that is extremely important, isn't it?
Oh yes, especially for the troops on ground. Because it is, if you hit me, I have to hit you twice, if not 10 times.
And for this, you get an okay from the chief, from the political establishment, or you don't wait for that?
You have a sense of what your chief wants, what the political establishment wants. And this is one thing that when I went as a corps commander, I knew my military hierarchy and my political hierarchy will hold my hand for any action I as a corps commander decide to do. That is one thing. There were no orders to be given. It was the sense, and I knew what my nation and my army wanted.
This was when you went in as corps commander. This was not your first tenure.
Yeah.
You also commanded your battalion there. Can you tell us, we have heard you gave a very motivational speech standing on a bonnet of a jeep. I know commanding Gorkha troops, especially, and that too in action environment in place like Kashmir. I can imagine, I talked to a lot of young officers. Everybody says that when you go, you give the motivational speech, you feel like a Napoleon Bonaparte kind of a feeling. That's please share your experience with us.
The story is a little different. This happened when I was in the plains. I was in a peace station in Ranchi. But before that, for any soldier, for anyone who goes to the military, despite everything, the ultimate would be that he goes to war and he fights for his nation. And if necessary, gives the supreme sacrifice. When I was a CO, I nearly got it. And that was because of Parakram happened. And one fine day after the parliament was attacked, we were mobilized and we knew we would be going to war. In 3 to 4 days from Ranchi, we had moved to the border in Rajasthan. And in the next 24 to 48 hours, we were ready to go across. And here was my whole battalion. We were already geared up, ready to go. And I felt, okay, maybe this is the last time I'll meet them together before we go in and we go across. So I wanted to talk to all my men. And that is the time I got into a bonnet of a jeep and spoke to all my men. I said, the nation needs us. We are here now today to do what every soldier would want to do. And I talked to them for 15 to 20 minutes. And yes, the morale of the whole battalion was much higher, much different. I was feeling better. So that is the incident which my young officers always remember.
Gorkhas ki baat ho rahi hai, to fir General Manekshaw also is known for those inspirational speeches that he used to give.
Yeah, of course, he was on a much higher pedestal in a higher category.
71 war, at that time it said that his speeches also.
So in Parakram, when we nearly went to war, those feelings and just before you get into the ring. And I thought it was very important that I could communicate with each and every man of mine. And it happened. We got together. It was a sand dune. To raise myself that everybody could see me, I used a jeep and got into the bonnet.
And then you also took them to...
I took them to the Uri, to the line of control.
Okay. And any incidents there which you would like to
Well,
share?
of course, like, on the LC, the basic is the psychological game, especially when a new battalion comes in. The other side wants to put them down morally by causing casualties, by firing, by doing other things. And that was the most formative time of a unit. And my unit did pretty well there. And even in a few months, we had exchange of fires and all, which we effectively handled.
So when casualties occur in their ranks, the first thing they would tell the terrorists, when I'm talking about the soldiers in the Pakistan army, when there are casualties there, they would probably give the directive to their foot soldiers, the terrorists who they've infiltrated, that they should inflict casualties among civilians, right? And then comes this thing, how do you manage that? So once you have said, because basically chaos and confusion and fear should be generated. You once said that, and I'll quote you, the army will abide by its rule. That's the Indian army will abide by its rule not to go after terrorist families or non-armed civilians. So there are many who say that, these are conventional tactics, should I use that word, that is used by the army, whereas the terrorists on the ground are not using that.
That is what differentiates terrorists and people in uniform who represent a nation. And especially us, the Indian Army, where we are the army, people's army. And people's army means the people of Kashmir also. And to cut off this cycle of violence, that more terrorists are not produced locally, that the people of Kashmir get convinced that this army is also to protect them. We have to be different than the terrorists. So at times even people, a terrorist from a family does not mean we have to target the whole family. We shouldn't. And we didn't. And what it helped was that the next son did not become a terrorist. There were many whom we could win over. And in fact, as you know, even the Ikhwans were ex-terrorists who the Indian Army had won over and who became a strong weapon for us. So it is very, very important that any army, especially in CI operations, and that is where success is, that we win the hearts and minds.
Continuing on Kashmir issue, prior to Corps Commander, you handled Kashmir very well as DGMO. Now, the DGMO also gets to talk to his Pakistani counterpart. Now, when you took the war to the enemy, I remember they were requesting very frequently for talks on Tuesday. So, what did they tell you कि आप बहुत ज़्यादा कर रहे हैं या बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया है, बंद करो अब, हम कुछ नहीं करेंगे? What was the major...
their narrative has been that the Pakistan army is in no way involved in supporting the terrorists. That lie would be repeated by them. And even when we started more resolute actions, more RT fire, more resolute actions by us, always there was a cry that we should reduce it. We should reduce this exchange of fire, because that gave me an indication that the policy we had decided for more resolute action was paying.
And on ground, their local commanders, would they also request for flag meetings कि भैया क्या आप एक हमने दो गोली चलाई आप तो मारे जा रहे हो?
It was happening at battalion local levels and even in meetings which took place at the brigade commander level, like at Punch and other places.
So we're recording this podcast just a week or so after this gruesome killing that had happened in Jammu, where Hindus were targeted. Now the villagers in that place, they are saying कि यहाँ पे army camp बनाओ. Now, the thing is that one can understand, that अगर army यहाँ पे होगी तो हम secure feel करेंगे. But is that a solution that हर village में army camp ho? That's not feasible also. So how is one supposed to do this?
Firstly, I'll just a little bit I'll try to tell you, and you are well aware of that. Rajouri, Poonch, and coming down to Nariya, all these areas, there is a population which is a mix of Hindus and Muslims. As you go north, maybe there are more Muslims. As you come toward Jammu, there are more Hindus. And these are small pockets of small villages, 4, 5 houses, spread over maybe a walk of 2 hours, 3 hours, 6 hours. A very difficult area. And easily a terrorist can hit somewhere because we cannot be everywhere. So one of the schemes which we've been running for a long time is the VDC, Village Defense Committees, and more importantly, arming these local ex-servicemen, maybe ex-policemen, or some youth from the local village. And I have found this to be very effective. I remember 60-year-old Sikh gentleman, proudly, I used to call these VDCs when I was a brigade commander in that area, coming with his weapon. He had been awarded a Senna medal because he had held back 4 terrorists for nearly 4 to 5 hours and even killed one. And he had served in the armed forces only for 5 years.
Okay.
Now, there are challenges there because the weapon we give them is not an AK. Previously, it was a 303. And the terrorist has a weapon which is more advanced. I think the armed forces locally are looking at it, giving them better weapons, training them and preparing them. It is very important and to effectively control this area, especially Rajouri, Poonch, Jammu. It would be most important to make these VDCs more strong, spread them out, this culture, and these people will be able to. And yes, there would have to be anchor posts where the army can react. But like I'm telling you, maybe at times, by the time the army reacts, it will take a little time.
Do you think that Pakistan is, you've done more than one tenure in Jammu and Kashmir. You know that these are waves that happen. There's the ebbing and things that happen. Do you think that Pakistan is on the verge of creating yet another, a rise in militancy in Jammu and Kashmir using locals in this?
That effort would go on. They have always been trying this. But I don't know. I do not know the details as to who did this firing. But I'm sure there would be terrorists from across and not locals. Locals, by and large, whatever community they belong to, I'm talking about the Poonch Rajouri sector, are more looking for peace, or they are convinced by the Indian narrative.
Okay, so now that we have talked about Jammu and Kashmir, let me turn your attention to the eastern sector. You were Director General Military Operations during the Doklam Crisis. So could you tell us what happened then?
Okay. To start with what exactly happened on 16th to 18th June, when we decided...
2017 now we're talking about.
Yeah, 2017 was when a party of Chinese troops as well as construction workers came to a point which was 200 meters from Dokala, which is a pass, and they wanted to extend that road which was there up till there and take it to a ridge line which was called Zamfiri, just 1.5 to 2 kilometers. They had to cross one nala called Torsa Nala and thereafter go there. And the implications was that if they had made that road to that point, the Zamfiri ridge, which as per us belongs, and today also we believe, is Bhutanese, they would have a peak into our Siliguri Valley. Entire Siliguri corridor would be seen from there, which was 25 to 30 kilometers. A major strategic vulnerability would have been created. So there was a choice to stop them there, stop that road there, or let it go. Now the technicality which they claimed, and it was a question which was there, that they, and we also agree to one thing, is that land where they were wanting to make that road belonged to Bhutan. So going across into another country to stop the third country was a major challenge to take the decision. But that red line was clearly understood by me as a DGMO, by my chief, General Rawat, who became the CDS, and even by the government. And we decided on that day to go across and stop them.
And sir, like most of the people don't know this fact that Dokala is in Bhutan. Now,
No, you are talking about the Doklam Plateau.
Doklam
or the Doklam Plateau,
Yes,
they
sir.
are now called.
so how far were we from there when we actually positioned when we saw the Chinese trying to build a road in this area?
Just 200 meters. 200 to 300 meters.
Okay. And we were on Indian soil.
Yeah, we were on Indian soil. Fortunately, in Sikkim, compared to all other places, there's a distinct ridge line
Okay.
which forms, which is like a boundary. It is more defined than in many other places like we have between India and China. It is not very clearly defined. But here it is defined better.
Okay.
But the question was, this land which was there, did it belong to Bhutan or China? China claimed it was theirs. Bhutan claimed it was theirs. And it was basically an issue of the tri-junction.
Okay.
The tri-junction between the three countries, we claim it is at Batangla, while they claimed it was at Gamuchin. That made a difference of 8 to 10 kilometers deeper.
Okay.
And that was the area which is called the Doklam Plateau. And where it ends towards India, or where it overlooks the Siliguri corridor, is called the Zamferi Ridge.
So at what point of time did we decide that we are going to move I think the what bulldozers the kya the would land movers and
it was
all
in
that.
those 24 to 48 hours
It
we
took-
decided.
Okay.
I'll just give you a brief background to it. Fortunately, when I took over as a Director General of Military Operations in November 2016, and General Rawat was the Vice Chief that time, there was a delegation which came from Pakistan, China, from the PLA to here to India. And fortunately, we had one-day interaction with them. They came and met the Vice Chief. They met me as a DGMO. And in that interaction, I could meet the first theatre commander of PLA of China. Zhong Ki, his name was, and he stayed till June 2020. And there were there were officers from the Tibetan military region, the Xinjiang military region. It gave me talking to them, though through an interpreter, did give me a sense of who they were. And in all their talk, of course, we talked of many things and how to keep the LAC peaceful and all others. Somehow, maybe I got a sixth sense that they could create some trouble sometime this year.
In that.
In somewhere on their line of control.
Okay.
I was not very sure where. But it was somewhere that
Sure.
I thought they will test us, they will probe us. And this, I think, was the opinion of the chief also. So on June 16th is much later. The action started earlier, where there's a place called the Plateau, or there's a finger area, we call it, in Sikkim only, where they tried to do unnecessary showing of forts. Even vehicles, they tried to take it from our side of the perception of the line of control, which was very well defined. They wanted to come on a track which was on side. There was banging of vehicles, and it started with small vehicles banging with each other. And to handle the Chinese, we sent a little bigger one, which when they banged into, it was their vehicle which got.
This sounds so. It sounds like a fight in Delhi's
So
suburbs.
So it is not a war, but it is a psychological game.
It is.
It
Okay.
is. And these psychological games are very important.
Because there's no firing. Sir, wo bhi
Yes.
bata dijiye. Explain this thing.
The thing is, there is, and if you see the LAC has been peaceful for so many years, is that over the years, both sides have defined rules of the
Engagement.
Engagement. How, when troops meet, what will they do? That we will not use firearms. How will situations be handled? Now, they at times cross over. Even a physical hitting each other's vehicle or getting into a physical thing like it happened in Yangtze is best avoided.
Right.
But it does happen, and it is very important to test each other's resolve.
And to keep the nerves, right? Because when General Naravane was here, he explained
Yes.
that when the troops are there, they are carrying firearms, and it requires a great deal of restraint. Not to use that firearm and keep the spirit and letter of that treaty alive by not using that firearm despite provocation.
And if you see, for so many years, we have been, since 62, on the line of actual control. And except one or two odd incidents in 67, or very recently in Galwan, we have not allowed violence to go beyond a point.
Right. So let's get back, sir. So what happened that day then? That 48 hours.
Now, that day, firstly, so whenever summers happened, and that has been happening for a few years, we had started putting troops, for acclimatized troops who could operate in high altitude in all our sensitive areas, be it Sikkim, be it Ladakh, be it many other areas. So we had adequate troops available to react, to face a contingency. That was our backup. Now, when these dozers came and these people, construction company people came on 16th, the challenge was, if he pushes his dozer, how is a man going to stop it without firing?
These are PLA dozers, though.
PLA dozers.
Okay.
Either he has to fire.
It's not private or anything. It's their Fauji dozer.
Yes, they're construction companies.
Okay.
It's like
our border roads.
Border roads, something, but with border troops.
Okay.
So it was okay to tell them to stop, not to move the dozer forward. But if he physically tries to use the dozer and tries to move and do, which they tried, they started clearing the mud or something. We had to stop them physically. Fortunately, border road organizations, dozers were on this side. So the first, so to say, troops which went across, they also took these dozers. So we had force on force to at least stop those dozers. That is how we allowed these two dozers to come. And if you go to the website or anywhere, you will see that Chinese picture which they have taken out, showing that Indian big vehicles across on this side. So because we had it there, and General Rawat and myself, we decided we might as well use it.
So it's a crossover on the boundary you are doing at this stage?
Yes,
you are.
It was 200 meters across.
Okay. But
it was, as per us, Bhutanese territory.
Right. So is that viewed as a proactive, aggressive measure done by India?
You know, for us it was very clearly defined that we do not allow them to cross the Torsa Nala, which would have led them to the Zamferi Ridge and created a vulnerability for us. That was our red line. And we ensured that that red line is not crossed.
And sir, when you did it, the Chinese also reacted in a very aggressive manner. They put in their missile systems. They've even today we see a lot of satellite pictures showing a huge Chinese camp along that area. So what did they do when you stopped them from moving ahead?
Firstly, they brought additional troops there. There was a buildup of troops at the point of contact. And other than that, they tried to activate the whole area of Sikkim. They brought in more forces closer into the Chumbi Valley, as that is there, to Yodong, to other areas. They brought in regiments of tanks which were put much more closer to the line of actual control. They put in missiles, and they activated their airfields in the closer depth. It was complete show of force.
And what did we do?
Oh, yes, we also, we built up our forces, and we were also prepared for any kind of contingency.
So, can we today say that now we also have a military camp in that area, or we have built around on the Bhutanese territory to just protect our interest?
No, we are not across on the Bhutanese territory.
Okay.
But because we here in Sikkim, we have an advantage is that we are on the ridge line.
Okay.
And even Doklam is lower than where we are at Dokala.
Okay.
We have an advantage. The place where they build up and people say that, okay, they have built up later, it is an area which is claimed by Bhutan and China both.
Okay.
It is not Indian territory.
Okay.
Our line LAC is very clearly defined in Sikkim, and we hold and have bunkers on it.
Sir, you have dealt with the Chinese as DGMO. Now, every few years the Chinese keep changing their goalpost. They say, नहीं हम तो यहाँ तक पहले भी आते थे. So, when you deal with them at such a high level, does it surprise you that a country which claims to be a superpower economically, militarily, is behaving in such a petty manner that it is trying to encroach upon Indian or Bhutanese or everybody else's land inch by inch?
The thing is, on the line of actual control, the aim is to test our resolve, test what we will allow them to do, and keep the LAC active. And it is, as it is becoming more powerful, both economically, and it is growing up, it wants to exert on its peripheries. And of course, we know geopolitically that in Asia, if there is a rival, of course, internationally it is USA. In Asia, if there is some country which has not got into the Chinese bandwagon, it is India.
When you say we have not got into the Chinese bandwagon, right next on the western front, there's Pakistan, which has ceded them land, lot of areas in northern areas, and now they are connected over through the land waterway. They built up CPEC also.
Yeah.
So, and I guess if I remember correctly, a lot of activity was happening in this area also when you were the DGMO. What actually were they doing, sir, at that time?
What has happened is, you know, the CPEC, which is a land access which China would now have through Tibet and through Pakistan. Other than that, it is something like it is the new colonization of Pakistan by China. As I see it, Pakistan is giving away its sovereignty for money.
It's the Pakistan army, basically.
Yes, because the richest people there are from the Pakistan army.
And to what
including
extent?
the chief.
To what extent they have done that, sir?
The Plotistan that everybody talks about.
To what extent have they sold their country to the Chinese?
You can see and you can make out that all properties along the CPEC, who has been the people who have involved in the contracts, and allowing a sovereign nation, allowing your land to be given to another nation. It is, what can be more?
Now, the Pakistanis don't have any right on the roads built by the Chinese.
Most of it is they have conceded much more than what a sovereign nation would.
So Pakistanis can't even open a dhaba alongside.
Yes, dhaba and tire shops they can.
Okay, dhaba and puncture shops.
Okay. So we were talking, when you were talking about Kashmir, you spoke about taking back the narrative. You know, so there is this whole thing about a narrative being built and has been built, not just new thing when it comes to two-front war, when it comes to China now, that taking back the narrative. बहुत लोग बोलते हैं that, you know, this, that we lose the narrative at times, that, you know, when it comes, like for example, if you remember during the stone pelting episodes, you know, that then that narrative was taken over. Now comes the China narrative. So this whole thing internationally also, nobody gives us credit that we stood our ground against a nation which is like several times the size of India. And we're the only ones who have stood up against the bully tactics of China. No other country in Asia has stood up the way we have. But that is not even our own media gives us credit or gives the nation credit for standing up. So there's this political narrative also. Then there's an international narrative also. So how important is it for the army at times, these narratives?
You know, as far as China goes, it is very important that we as a nation, and I think the government at least, we have to know that it is a rival which is growing. And of course, in diplomacy, all roads are the best. You have to cooperate, you have to talk, you have to collaborate. But as a military man, I would say it should be done from a position of strength. We have to, it is very important, we as India, we have to continue building up our strength, because it is strength by making the infrastructure, by making better weaponization, that China knows that if it does any action against India, the cost would be very high. The best way to prevent a war with a strong rival is put a cost on him. And the cost can only be put if we are strong. Of course, for everything to happen, the most important thing is that as our economy grows, there will be more money for our security.
Right. So you also spoke about 2016 where you met with the Chinese delegation and you got this sense. It's not just conversations. I'm sure your experience over the years, you could make out the nuances when you meet, your counterparts. So you get this. Now, once you go back, what happens? Do you tell the political leadership? Do the diplomats? Does the ambassador? Do you brief them also that you get this sense? How does the backroom talks happen then?
So I should share with you, and of course I remember Ajit had done a story on that. Those 74 days of Doklam Crisis was the most challenging for me, most sleepless nights, but professionally most satisfying as I look back. Nearly every day, the backroom team was meeting, talking and discussing. And who all did it have? It was led by the NSA. It had the foreign secretary, now the foreign minister. It had the IB chief. It had the RAO chief.
RAW chief.
RAW chief. And myself and the JS who was handling China. And at times whenever the ambassador, Mr. Gokhale from China, was flying in a number of times to brief us.
So where does this happen? In Delhi?
This was a team meeting in Delhi.
Okay.
And nearly meeting every second day. Getting all round 360-degree outputs and also working out what would be our response.
This is almost a war room?
Yes, informal one, but yes, like a war room.
So even though we are not in a state of war, we are seeing an aggression. We are talking about 2017 right now. Yes. I'm using a present tense because I'm getting this sense that this is what was going on then.
And in between, whenever there was a requirement, the Prime Minister was briefed on this. The Foreign Secretary and the Defence Minister were also kept into the loop nearly on a daily basis.
Right. And so they know every step of the way and everybody is on the page, same page. There's no dissonance because that can cause trouble.
Yes. And like I told you, all and everyone was aware of what was happening, what were the responses and actions to be taken. And like this, Doklam was not only resolved at what we did at Doklam itself, which was our military part of it and our actions. Even the Prime Minister's initiative of walking up to Mr. Xi Jinping at a meeting on 15th July. That was a SCO meeting. G20 meeting. He walked up to the Chinese premier and told him that, okay, this is the time now. This is what has happened. We need to resolve it. And I believe he agreed. That's what the newspaper report says, that we should talk diplomatically. But on the ground, what happened was we started communicating at the level of the foreign minister and the diplomacy.
So there are some who will interpret that as a weakness on the part of a political leadership, that we made a move towards an aggressor. But I remember you saying that peace is what is most important. Yes. So for that reason, for the larger good or for the larger reason for peace, you might have to make the first move towards an aggressor. So please explain to us as to what happened then. And why is it necessary sometimes?
It was something which was not, this meeting was not scheduled. This was an initiative which the Prime Minister took, seeing the seriousness of the whole issue. But what had happened, something which could have turned to a war, stopped at a confrontation which got resolved. We have to see the bigger picture. And this was because the Prime Minister, understanding the seriousness of the problem and finding a solution which I think was the best.
So there are many times political leaderships need to take that decision not to go to war, even though your forces are ready for it. Operation Parakram was also that, right?
So,
mobilization happened, but
ultimately war is a political decision. And no wars have led to a solution. That is, any war, We have fought so many wars with Pakistan, and we are ready to fight with China if required. It would be to protect the boundaries of our nation and not to get anything else.
Right.
Sir, during this Doklam confrontation, was there, it went on for 74 days. I remember Jal Rawat and the people in NSCS talking, like praising you for your resolve during the crisis. Was there at any point of time any possibility or any marpeet like Yangtze and Galwan where you felt that okay, now अब तो लड़ाई होगी या कहीं और किसी सेक्टर में?
You know, Ajit, you remind me is that when the situation all along the LAC was very sensitive, and of course in Sikkim Doklam was happening, and it was 15th August, and we had gone for the Prime Minister's speech in his Red Fort, that I get a message that there's some problem in Ladakh. So I check up. Initially, the inputs do not come immediately, but it came was that there had been, as you say, marpeet. There had been a confrontation between our troops and the Chinese on Finger 4.
Finger 4.
And it had become really violent. And if you see the social media photographs at that time,
I have that videos.
We had injured a Chinese soldier, which very maturely one of our men ensured that it doesn't become too serious. And you had seen the violence had become slightly more. Well, such incidents are the most dangerous, where tactical commanders' actions can lead to war. It was a serious situation. We handled it. And both sides could handle it because we had some rules of the game. We pulled back from there, and it did not affect the serious point that was Doklam.
I think we should now move on to the other hat that General Saab wears now.
The new hat.
The new hat that you wear. So let's move to you're the Director General of the Indian Space Association. So now it's billed as the next big thing, and there are already 45 or so space startups. So tell us, what does the future look like?
Okay, I would start with this, how it happened. Space has always been a strategic sector world over. It has been the domain of governments, be it in America, be it in India. And India, it was led by ISRO, who has done a fantastic job. They have kept us amongst very few spacefaring nations of the world. That said, in America, the open sky policy came around in late 90s. The outcome of that was people like Elon Musk, Virgin Galactic, Jeff Bezos, where private players started getting into the space domain. And when that has happened, in India also the government realized that we also should have an opportunity for our private players. Because from the strategic sector today, space has moved that it has become a commercial enterprise. Like I would give you an example, early morning today when you would have woke up and if you used Google, you have used space. When you checked the weather, you have used space. When you transferred some money or collected some money from an ATM, you have used space. All civilian uses and many more. The farmer today, when he decides to plant trees, whatever his crops, he looks at what is the weather.
When is the rains coming? What is the right time?
And even if his crop fails and he has to make a claim, the banks check it through satellite photographs. So it has now become a very, very important part of our civilian life. And hence it was very important that India also, apart from ISRO, which has been doing a fabulous job, private players should come in. And fortunately for us, firstly, ISRO's suppliers and vendors have got good knowledge of technology. And that is L&T, that is Walchand Industries, that is Godrej, that is HAL, and these are the 4-5 major ones. And a new thing after the Prime Minister made a decision, and even before that, 2020 this decision was taken that we will allow space to be privatized in India. Startups have started coming in. And today the number we have is of 100 plus. And the first startups who started in around 2018, last year fired their first rocket. 2 of them have launched the satellites created in the private domain. And many more will do it now. In fact, one of our startups called Pixel is going to make a constellation of satellites which will look at the whole world from the low Earth orbit and do remote sensing by hyperspectral, which is a very high-end technology. In the world, it is rare. And by the end of this year or next year, they will have a constellation where they will provide information for handling disaster management or for monitoring forest fires or monitoring petroleum pipelines. And it is being done by young men, average age 28 to 30.
So many generations of Indians, I would say, we've grown up looking at the space wars between America and the former Soviet Union. Today, there is the space wars or competition between America and China. Where does India figure in this?
Like I said, we are amongst the very few space-faring nations of the world. And we have the technology and know-how of the best. And why I'm saying of the best is we have been able to send something to the Mangalyaan and the Chandrayaan, and very soon Gaganyaan, which is a human beings going up to the space, will also happen.
Vyomnauts, right? Vyomnauts.
So we have the technological capability and we are there. Yes, in the last few years, China has been very aggressively going into space. They had a very large number of launches, 50 or more last year, compared to a very few, 3 to 4 by us. But that does not mean we do not have the capability. Now there is one thing called space as far as military goes. It is one of the, we say, the new 2 domains, apart from land, air and sea, is cyber and space. But here I would say space is not for space wars, that may take a little longer, but space helps the present land, sea and air to operate. It is for communication, it is for ISR, that is knowing where the enemy is. Today with what you have in the space, no place in the world is hidden.
Right.
With the precision of 10 centimeters, they can read a plate of anywhere. The whole area, the whole border, everything can be seen from space. So the space has become a major enhancer of the capability of any military force.
And sir, since you are heading the association, you are promoting startups. Now you are a military man, basically, but in the space association, are you encouraging Indian startups to develop something where we can have a system where from space we can see if there is an infiltrator moving towards terrorist moving towards the LOC and alert the ground troops to eliminate him then?
Yeah, that would be a dream of any company commander, NCO or any military commander. It will happen one day, very soon.
Is there work going on?
Now, in this I would just like to tell you is the Ministry of Defence took a great initiative. They would never talk to private players, but they have discussed with my industry members, my startups and with us and sat down to lay down the challenges for what they expect from private players. Exactly like you were saying, what all is required in space for the militaries, the 3 militaries, Army, Navy and Air Force. And this was made into what is called IDEX defense challenges.
So,
And 75 challenges have been now put into the open domain. This is, to me, it has been personally a great achievement that the militaries, which never talked to private players about space, have now interacted with private players in India and put something across to them. What are the aspirations for? What do they want enhancement for? And one of the things in that would be that we would be able to see an infiltrator coming across.
and sir, like now you are dealing a lot with the private companies. Now, I remember about a few years back, private was a very bad word in the military.
Correct.
Yes.
People would say,
Suspicion.
अरे प्राइवेट वाला है, इसको तो शाम को 4 से 5 के बीच में 1 घंटे में मिल सकते हैं, वो फ़ोन अपना 5 किलोमीटर दूर जमा करके आएगा, इससे कोई बात नहीं करेगा, या जो बात करेगा वो रिटन कम्युनिकेशन ही होगा. Now you're talking about a lot of successes from private sector. This is happening in defense also.
Yeah. So firstly, this government itself has changed the environment from the mindset, which I would say the buffers mindset, or what happened in those times. It is a different world, and there's been a very creative thing done by Defense Ministry called IDEX, where they throw challenges to young innovators, young startups on something which needs to be created in India. They finance it partially, and they let them go from the stage of an idea to a product being made. So it's a different world. I have seen this world changing from my military experience, where I would not talk to any industry man when I was in uniform, not officially at least, to what is happening now.
Right.
And it is a positive change because they also have to be partners in our security.
Right. So you spoke about Mission Gaganyaan. Can you tell us a little bit about where Indian astronauts going into space? When is that going to happen? Vyomnauts.
Previously, the target was about 2023-24. They have reviewed the targets, and slightly it'll take a little more time because, very rightly, like the ISRO chief says, human life is very important. And they have to do multiple tests to ensure that when they ultimately send a man to space, it is totally safe.
Right.
But what is already going on is the training of the astronauts or the wormnauts, as you say, the equipment on which it will go. And this year there will be tests on what they call checking it for disaster. Something happens, if it has to be launched, and how all the equipment has been working and all. There are multiple tests they have to do when they will reach the level when they will actually put a human being and send him across, but it will happen.
I mean, my generation, so we were in school when Squadron Leader Sharma went, and there's always a hope that in my lifetime at least I want to see a Vyomnaut.
Oh yes, not in your lifetime,
Soon?
Just in a few years.
All right. Okay. Now tell us about the Chandrayaan-3. At what stage are we, sir? Because there was this collective sense of dismay, when that Vikram lander of Chandrayaan-2, it crashed. So where are we right now on that?
I think it's the new one which they are making for Chandrayaan-3 is a more modern and much more, it will be a far better one made. And if you see Vikram also, we saw that, okay, it did not land and all. But what had been achieved till where it was sent was a great thing. It just happened. In space, one small error costs the whole mission. And that is what happened in that case. That in the final landing, there was something which did not work. But that is why maybe it is taking a little more time. But this will also again happen very soon. I would not be the one who would like to put a timeline on this.
On any of the missions?
Because the ISRO chairman he keeps making a statement. And like in science, and especially rocket science, which is ultimate, we have to leave the timelines to our scientists.
Right.
And sir, talking about all these programs, now when we sent the mission to Mars, that was in terms of cost, it was very low if you compare it with the Americans. So how are our costs compared to what the Chinese are doing in terms of satellites and creating these constellations?
Now, as far as China goes, we are not aware of what is their cost because they have not commercially been talking of it.
Okay.
We only get a sense of what America or many other nations do. But if you compare it with all others in the world, the ISRO program itself and even the cost of launch, cost of satellite made by ISRO and now in the future by a private sector would be very competitive cost-wise. It would be competitive enough that people from all over the world will use our launch vehicles or get satellites manufactured in India.
Already, some countries have used, no?
Oh yes, they have been. That is, they have been using the ride of our PSLVs and GSLVs. The latest has been 36 satellites of OneWeb, which were launched by the GSLV in October.
Okay.
So that has been happening, but more of it will happen.
And when the private sector launch vehicles will go up in the space, how how would they be in terms of cost comparison with the ISRO ones?
Now,
Would they still be cheaper?
Firstly, what I would like to tell you is we are quite cheap in comparison to others. But ever since Elon Musk has come into the fray and the reusable rocket, he has made cost of launch 1/5 of what it was before.
Okay.
That is a very tall order to compete with because it requires the technology of a reusable rocket. But I'm very confident that will also be made in India.
So you spoke about how the achievements that we have done in space research and all, how it's benefiting from pharma to the defense and all. So can you explain a little more about how this digital divide that everybody talks about in India, how that can be surmounted through space?
In fact, that is one of the things my association has always been propounding, and I've been lobbying on it with the government. India, the biggest challenge is that half of India, maybe 47% plus, which is in the rural areas or areas like Ladakh or Andamans or many other unconnected areas. Because what has happened is mobiles have come all over the country. But fiberization has not reached the last man. Northeast, Arunachal Pradesh, Ladakh. Now space will overcome that.
Okay.
Because technologically, it is far easier to do it. Satellite today on a low constellation is something like a tower in the sky. We call it fiber in space. And that will ensure it will connect the man in the village as also provide him broadband. These low Earth LEO constellations, which are being created by OneWeb, which are being created by Starlink, claim, and I'm very sure will, provide broadband connectivity to the furthest corner, equal speeds, comparable speeds to what terrestrial communication is providing.
Right.
And what happens, the outcome of that is the whole economy of the rural area will change.
Yes.
Because they will be able to do fintech, they will be able to do education, they will be able to use it for health.
Tourism too.
And also enterprises will go there, factories will go there.
Yes.
Because IoTs can also be used.
Because I've seen very often, there are these people make this Instagram reels and things which they make that beautiful village that, bed and breakfast in some area. And then they say, hum yahan pe, but we can't make reels. We can't put it. We can't promote tourism in these areas. Even if it's ecological tourism, friendly tourism, even that can't happen. And when tourists reach a place, the economy improves. So connectivity is extremely important.
Absolutely right. So that broadband connectivity will be achieved far faster with satellite communication.
I feel this restraint a lot in Ladakh and near the Pangong, where you can click thousands of pictures, but
they will not.
There is no connectivity at all. And most of the tourists, like I go there for coverage, but most of the tourists who come there, they feel this. Then there are villages near Chushul and all these areas, Arunachal. You're right, sir.
But from a security point of view, sir, is it okay? Because there is also this thing that once you open up and you give everybody connectivity out there, the enemy can also use that.
The fact is, you may deny it to your people because of the security. But today, satellites, and especially like the low Earth observation satellites, are international. You cannot tell Elon Musk not to provide it to Pakistan.
Correct.
Or maybe China also, because he's a commercial enterprise. So it is something you deny to your people on the reasons of security is you will be left behind in the race. You have to find other methods to ensure that security is taken care of.
Gen Sahab, there's one thing that I want to pick up. This is David Devdas's book on the story on Kashmir. He writes, the saving grace was that the officers in charge in 2018 were far more sensitive and nuanced than those who had fought a proxy war in the late 1990s. Intelligent and responsive officers like the Corps Commander Anil Bhatt and the Commander-in-Chief of the Northern Command understood the limitations of kinetic operations in home arenas. Explain on this. How was it different from the 90s and now?
The times were different and the requirements were different.
Okay.
Because in 1990, when the upsurge took place, the situation was that a large part of the valley was not under the control of the security forces. Firstly, we were very low in numbers. RR had not been created. We were focused on the line of control, but internally we just hardly had a brigade or a little more. And those challenging times where armies of terrorists were being trained in villages, in pockets which were away and far off reach. It was something like they were believing, and the whole people of Kashmir were believing, that they would have taken Kashmir in a few days.
We almost lost Kashmir in 90s.
Yeah, 90s. So at that time, maybe kinetic operations were much more important. Neutralization of a larger number of terrorists was important. And maybe the collateral damages were also larger. And we as an army also were dealing with a very challenging situation at that time. But as things have improved, and when I went there, I looked at the cycle of violence from 1990 to when I took over in 2018. I saw our successes and our failures.
But you were there before 2018 also, as a younger officer.
Younger. So as a younger officer, every time my...
every tour of duty is different.
Was different.
Right.
Was different. You had to shift across. And I'll give you the best example is on Eid. Some of my predecessors started it. Local company commanders would call local people and serve biryani and all to the people as a goodwill gesture. Now this was done all across the valley. It was being done previously. I said, yes, why not? And it establishes the writ of the company commander, his contact with the people. Now this was happening all over. On that day, I got a report at one place that there was, when our people were distributing food, there was violence. A crowd came in. There was stone pelting. And my people who had gone to distribute the biryani at the masjid had to really withdraw using firing weapons in the air. Now, many of my commanders said, why should we feed them when this is their response? I also reviewed it, but I said, no, it will continue. Why? Because we did it at 2,000 places. It is only one place we got that response. At the rest of the 1,900 people were very warm and they took it. To again differentiate between the people and the separatists is very important.
Right.
And that was my focus. In Kashmir, I listed out every Jamaati. I listed out every Hurriyat member to differentiate him who had stakes with Pakistan, who had stakes in the violence, who was even selling admissions in Pakistan and Pakistan for students from Kashmir. This is what the Hurriyat chief used to do, collect money for that. Somebody would pay him 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs. He would keep half the money. This was the money to be used for terrorists or for him.
And in the 90s, the Hurriyats were just about starting out and they were like kings after that. Yes. In your earlier tenures, you would have seen that.
So you've seen the difference of when the Hurriyat chief died. There was nothing. Otherwise, 5 years back, if he had died, because he was an old man and he could have died any time, there were fears that there would be violence and Kashmir would burn. We have been able to create a situation where he died like any old man who would go away.
You were there, you were very casually saying 274 terrorists died in 1 year. There were a lot of big targets, big terrorists or so-called senior commanders who were killed. And you had a list, top 10, I guess that started top 10 terrorists to be eliminated. How frequently did that list you had to, like you could take off that 1 2 3 सब चले गए टाइप्स, कैसे लिस्ट का आइडिया कैसे आया सर, और कैसे आपने इसको, हाउ डिड यू कैरी आउट?
When you make a list, it puts a pressure on the other guy that he otherwise also knows. And like the average age of a terrorist, we have reduced it. The HM leader did not previously would survive for 5 to 10 years. By the time my tenure was getting ending, it was 9 months to 1 year. A local terrorist who took up arms, a young boy, his survival rate was 6 months, 3 months. All of this the outcome has been lesser people joining there. A situation, Mohammed Azhar, the Jaish leader, in the area of Tral where there is a Jaish. Masood Azhar sent his nephews. The first nephew came, he was supposedly a great leader who was a sniper firer, and they said he'll create Tral again into what it was 15 years back. He went back to Allah or to his uncle in 15 days.
Okay.
The next nephew was sent. We sent him back, sent him up in 10 days. And the third one was in 3 days.
Okay.
So that was the kind of intelligence network we had.
3 of Masood Azhar's nephews.
They claimed that they were his nephews. I don't know if he has so many brothers and sons. But yes, definitely out of the 3, 2 we knew who were his nephews.
Is that communicated back to them?
They know. They know, yeah. We do that.
You do that, right? That kind of conversation is necessary.
Yes, it doesn't have to be on a phone call or something, but it gets communicated.
Right. Are the bodies sent back? What happens to them? No.
It is a rule we follow in Kashmir. All foreign terrorists will be buried in a place which we have identified.
Unmarked.
Yes. But it is a place we've identified. If from anywhere they will be.
And also the locals are, I guess, told that, or the message has gone that there's no incentivizing sending their sons.
Yes. And that was itself a major effort. And thanks to our security agencies also who helped us in it, we were able to map these people who were organizing it. There was an organization working from Hurriyat, working from other separatists, who would go when a terrorist would die to make it into a big affair. Making the mother fire a weapon, getting the crowds collected from all the villages around, having all those, the total drama which used to come of any terrorist dying and showing 10,000 people there and all, was done by an organization which organized it. We picked them up.
So it wasn't organic, those visuals that...
No, they were all done up. There were social media groups who would say, reach there, you have to reach there. People had to report that they've reached there. So if I am not even involved in any way in terrorism, if I did not go there, there would be a blowback to me. So we identified these ringleaders, these perpetrators. And of course, many of them are behind bars now.
Right. So you spoke about social media and how it helps create a narrative for the militants, and then you used the forces use that same social media to break that narrative. Yeah. Could you give me a little bit?
This is one of the biggest challenges, is the echo chambers which get created in the social groups. What happens is many of these social media groups of these young boys are in an echo chamber where they believe everything being done by India, the Indian government, is against them. The story which would be told to them and would be exaggerated would be anti-Indian. Now, then there is a social media narrative which we put across everywhere. I realize that many of them are not seeing what I am putting across. I have to get into their groups. I have to get into their minds. And for that, we use resources that people were there inside to put in a story. And that had its impact.
Right.
But yes, it required creating teams, taking local help, because they would understand the local mind much more. But yes, a very important thing from this social media end was we also understood what was the vitriol and where was it, what was the cause of it. And many a times the cause was wrong. It was based on a lie. So the best thing was hinge your campaign on truths, on facts.
Right.
And that helped.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for giving us your time and shedding light on the various aspects in the Doklam region as well as in Jammu Kashmir and space. So thank you for your time on behalf of Ajit and me.
So I would just say that every soldier has a dream. I have to do the best in the armed forces. For me, it has, thanks to the army, it has been a dream run. I could do everything possible which any soldier would aspire to. And my prayer to God is next life also I should start the same way and become a soldier.
What a lovely thing to say. Jai Hind, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching or listening in to this podcast. Do like or subscribe on whichever channel you have seen this or heard this. Namaste. Jai Hind.